So yeah, thank you so much again for being here. I think before we go into our incredible speakers, which will really give us and paint a picture of how these counterinsurgency operations are afflicting the peoples of Asia and the Pacific, and the broader preparations and active wars that the US is waging in the region. We wanted to give a little context for this webinar. Earlier this year, the Resist US-led war movement launched our People's Caravan Against War Drills, a coordinated, mobile, and decentralized campaign against US-led military exercises with the aim to really rally the people's resistance that is already happening against these exercises, um, as the conditions of the rivalry between US and China continue to grow and bring them together, right? So until now, the campaign has been able to expose and oppose how the US uses these exercises to escalate the tensions between its rivals, and particularly China in the Asia Pacific, towards wars, and also really subjugate entire peoples and entire countries, um, its neo-colonies and colonies, to the US war agenda, using them as this cannon fodder to US-led war strategy. The caravan has already made several stops. I think we're seeing a little bit of that in the pictures right now, but we've been able to educate, to mobilize on these direct impacts on the communities, and started in April, right, with the Balikatan exercises happening in the Philippines, between the Philippines and the US, but then now have the participation of many other US allies, in which huge protests erupted against the use of the Philippines as this, what the US says or puts as this unsinkable aircraft carrier to wage its wars, and currently are also waging and confronting RIMPAC, the Rim of the Pacific, the largest maritime exercise in the world that happens every 2 years in occupied Hawaii. So throughout these many stops, we have seen people and brought together people, and the people have really taken to the streets, hosted educational events like this, which is part of the campaign, and garner international support through letter sign-ons to confront the enemies of the people. And of course, have also taken direct action against these exercises and against the people that are making these exercises possible or coordinating these exercises. For today, we really wanted to broaden the perspective of the resistance against these military exercises and preparations for war, to really highlight beyond the well-documented harms to the land and the people that these West War Games bring, and really bring the speakers to share firsthand testimonies of counterinsurgency and suppression tactics that the governments use and that go hand in hand with these exercises. People who resist occupation of their land, genocide, ecocide against their people, and because of that are being targeted by the state and counterinsurgency operations under false equivalences or under the pretext of so-called security, counterterrorism, peace building, conflict management, national development, etc. But that beyond the propaganda, that it's what really these names and jargons are, we see that these operations bring massacres to the people, criminalize their just resistance, and of course, in the end of the day, open the way for more exploitation and economic exploitation and plunder of the people and their lands by US imperialists and the local ruling classes in these countries, right? But we'll hear from the speakers, as we'll hear from them this repression and the continued plunder that the US and its puppets inflict on the people also sparks more resistance. So, also excited to hear the calls to action that our anti-war movement can really rally and support so that we center these people's movements for self-determination as we fight US-led war and put that resistance in the center and see sovereignty as a central pillar of the just peace that we're fighting for. So, hearing from the speakers from the Resist US Led War Movement Asia Pacific, Free West Papua Campaign, and also Karapatan in the Philippines, we'll be able to understand how the US has used Asia and the Pacific as this laboratory for counterinsurgency, and also how the communities, besides all this repression, continue to fight and push back towards the dismantling of this US military war machine. So, really excited that we can hear from all of the speakers. Without any further ado, I am honored to introduce our first contribution to the webinar, which is Noel Colina, which is part of the Resist US Led War campaign in the Asia Pacific and also the coordinator of IOPS Asia Pacific. I'll pass it to you, Noel. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Victor. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I'm very excited and privileged, to be with all of you, especially our speakers from West Papua as well as from the Philippines. Um, in my presentation, I have three main assertions when it comes to U.S. counterinsurgency. My first assertion would be U.S. counterinsurgency is done, is conducted, is implemented to ensure plunder, to ensure seamless imperialist plunder of human and natural resources of colonies and neo-colonies, especially of the global south in Asia Pacific as well as globally. Second assertion, U.S. counterinsurgency is not only meant to suppress the ongoing resistance of exploited and oppressed peoples, but also to prevent any forms of resistance from taking shape. Third assertion, the current counterinsurgency framework and policy of the U.S. has been shaped and will continue to be shaped by the finance capitalist colonial and neo-colonial conquest, which began in the 20th century, and it will continue to be shaped by the developments in the rivalries between imperialist powers, as mentioned by Victor, China and the US, Japan and China, and these rivalries. It will also be shaped by the resistance of the workers and the working class in the global north, in the developed economies, as they face multiple crises. And it will also be shaped by how nations who assert sovereignty, who resist domination by imperialism, resists. So these are important factors to consider in order for us to better understand how coin will develop, how coin is being developed at present. Those are my three main assertions. Now, I'd like to go into more details about first, my first assertion. In Asia Pacific, we are not new to colonialism, to imperialism. we had the Spanish coming to Asia. We had the French, the Japanese, the British, and the US. We are not new to colonialism and to imperialism. Starting from the 16th century until now, many of the countries in Asia Pacific are under subjugation of imperialism and of colonialism. Because our region is very rich in natural resources. They come here in our region because we are rich. We are rich in minerals. We are rich in in human resource. And right now, if you observe, there is a strong push for rare earth elements, which is part of this push for artificial intelligence, for new technology. And our region is also rich in those elements. So this is the reason why we have counterinsurgency operations in our region, because we are rich in resources, which the imperialist needs to plunder, needs to extract from our lands, needs to process, and again, make profit from them. Current development of production have resulted in a situation where there is strong demands for the new technologies demands new types of minerals. In the start of the 20th century, you had really big push for oil. That was the main reason why, you had the British occupy the British Malacca. And then you had resources, precious metals, why the Dutch came to Indonesia and so on, and to other countries. But now we have this push for rare earth elements, which are important for creating the latest and the most advanced technologies, specifically for batteries, which are used for electric vehicles. You also have this need for rare earth, specifically because you need to have more uh, random access memory. You need to have more powerful silicon chips, which are needed by AI, artificial intelligence. At the same time, it's not just this rare earth. Data centers, which are important for AI, requires cooling. So it requires water, which we have, which the Asia Pacific has a lot of water. We are rich, again, in natural resource. And of course, also the expansion or the push for more renewable energies. So our region, again, is being plundered of its resources, creating what we have now, trillionaires. Remember Elon Musk, the first trillionaire? Main business would be in finance. Second would be in electric vehicles, which needs batteries, which requires lithium, which is part of the rare earth elements. And as well as you have Amazon, who requires massive numbers of data centers, which requires, again, water to cool it for it to efficiently work. So all of these resources we have. And of course, when these resources are being plundered, the people resist. And in order for them to be able to seamlessly plunder our lands, our resources, you have to suppress the resistance of the people. That's my second part. So At the start of the 20th century, before, no, or at the very, very start of the 20th century, in Latin America, for example, there was this Monroe Doctrine, no, where the US declared that the whole of Latin America is the backyard, is its backyard, and European powers should just focus on their own backyards. At the start of the 20th century, you will observe the war of conquest of the US in the Philippines, where close to 1 million uh, of the population during that time, which was around 7 million, were murdered, massacred through various forms, including hamleting, which is classic form of counterinsurgency. You had tortures, you had population control, and you have murders and massacres of people resisting. So that's the start of the 20th century. Now, post-World War II, of course, there's a different configuration now. You have, by 1917, the USSR was established. By 1949, you had now the People's Republic of China. So there's a different form now of counterinsurgency. And it took on the form of anti-communism. You had McCarthy in the US who, what does it say? They say, if it quacks like a duck, if it waddles like a duck, it is a duck. And this went on, no? This Cold War line by the US. Anyone who speaks of freedom, democracy are all red tag, no, and called communist. Now, by the start of the 21st century, you now have the war on terror, where after the 9/11 attacks in the US, they used the war on terror to invade Iraq, to invade Libya. I mean, the whole of West Asia. But at the present, it has a different form now. Uh, Probably most of you have read of the latest counterterrorism framework and policy of Donald Trump. Now, the Trump administration has identified three main uh, enemies, no, or terrorist groups, no, that's what they call them. First is counterterrorism the U.S. counterterrorism has to fight what Trump calls narco-terrorists and transnational gangs. That's the first. Second is what Trump calls legacy Islamist terrorists. And of course, Trump would say, okay, there's still legacy Islamist terrorists in Iraq, in Libya, and now, of course, the main promoter of this would be Iran. And then the third is what Trump calls violent left-wing extremists, which includes anarchists and anti-fascists. So this is the latest, no, of the counterterrorism framework of Trump. And as you can see, this is all being shaped, no, on how um, the struggles between the rival imperialists. Why would Trump mention the violent left-wing extremists, including anarchists and fascists, as terrorists? Remember, we have observed in the US, you have that regular street actions, protests against Trump. If I'm correct, the No Kings rally, no? There is a growing resistance of the working class inside the US because of the intense crisis that it's facing. So Trump has to clamp down on its own people who are fighting and resisting and demanding justice, on this the economic crisis that is being faced by the American people. In the time of Obama, it shifted to an Indo-Pacific strategy because of the growing threat of China against the sole hegemon before that time, no, of the US being the sole hegemon. Now we live in a multipolar world where uh, analysts would say US hegemony is in a decline, while you have this new rising power, which is China, which is in our region. And of course, the drive for minerals and resources is used, no? I mean, you need to have a cover for it in order for you to come in. So uh, when Maduro was kidnapped by Trump, he was accused of being part of narco-terrorism, supporting transnational gangs. And it's now embedded. It's now there in its counterterrorism framework. Uh, its attack against Ecuador, no, are all mentioned under the war against narco-terrorism. But remember, these countries, these areas in our region, again, are rich in resources. Just talk to our brothers and sisters from Latin America. You have the lithium triangle there. That's why Trump is invoking again the Monroe Doctrine, because of the importance of rare earth, which Latin America has a lot, and of course, still oil as its main, a big reserve of oil in Latin America. So um, there was this latest report. I think it's a report about Cuba, released, I guess, 2 days ago, no? And it mentioned that Cuba conducts campaigns of subversion and spying against the US. It's a 100-page report. I tried accessing it, but it's not available on the website. And Trump even included the mayor of New York as part of this cool conspiracy. So any enemy who resists, who fight against Trump, is labeled terrorist. And of course, this is all part of the counterinsurgency framework of the US, and how these are being implemented in the countries. We have our speakers here from West Papua as well as from the Philippines who would be giving you more details about how specifically these counterinsurgency operations are being conducted in these areas. And I hope I was able to give you some uh, tools of analysis for how we view counterinsurgency conducted by the US and at present by the presidency of Donald Trump. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Noel. Such a wealth of historical background, I think really grounding us into a essential part of the counterinsurgency, which is at the end of the day also centers the fight for land and resources for the people against the imperialists. And I think also a notable part in all this history that we just learned about is that the US hasn't been able, right, to crush the people's movements once and for all in either region of the world, in any region that they try to. employ those tactics from the Spanish Empire to right now. So really seeing also how the people are able to adapt and continue the fight because as long as the imperialists try to exploit them, exploit their labor, exploit their land, they will continue to fight back. So thank you so much, Noel, for this introduction to our subject. And like you said, so excited to also now see how this is actively being employed in particular contexts across the region. So to start us off, we'll hear from Marius Wenda with Free West Papua campaign as the first example. Marius Wenda is the founder and executive director of West Papua Campaign USA and head of the U.S. mission for the United Liberation Movement for West Papua Provisional Government, where he leads national advocacy for indigenous rights, environmental justice, and Pacific Islander empowerment. Based in Snohomish County, Washington, Marius works across government, community organizations, and academic institutions to advance decolonization, climate resilience, and culturally grounded youth leadership. Today, he will share with us on the struggle for sovereignty, the current human crisis in West Papua, and the conditions of plunder that the people are fighting back against. Please take the floor, Marius. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Pictures, and thank you, Noel, for sharing ground uh, with the information. Thank you. And yeah, before I started, maybe I will really want to play the song, but maybe like I will just skip it because there's a lot of informations that I need to share it. And before I uh, before I continue, I will start with a little bit of historical context. Maybe some of you already have my slide uh, in the comments. So there is some slide in the comment as well, and I just maybe you can download it and just check it. And we have in West Papua, of course, in the Pacific Islands, and it's the second largest islands of after the Greenland, and not a lot of people knows about it. And we also have the first largest rainforest that are located in the Asia Pacific, but nobody knows about it because Indonesian government propaganda really covered really well on that, and then undermine all the works and everything like that. So um, that's uh, that's not even on the media or everywhere. And I would like to start with history. Early in West Papua, origins of populated Melanesian people, and we've been there like thousands of years. And then colonial era, there is a Noel also mentions Netherlands. Was colonized Indonesia and also in West Papua. But in our case, it's a little bit different. And so Netherlands also vote for the West Papua to be independence because at the time our people not really ready. So they were trying to prepare West Papua to be independent later on. And then path to independence in 1961, there is West Papuan held a Congress and declared the independent, raising the Morning Star flag in December 1st in 1961. That happened, and we call it like uh, the West Papua Independent Day, and we still celebrate. And that happens like 18 days we were independent, and then right after the Indonesian uh, uh, intervenes with the West Papuans, and there is a long story happens in there. And also later on in 1969, there were Indonesia and no West Papua grant a referendum, and West Papua when we try to get independence, and uh, that's in 1969 under the international pressure. Indonesian conducted a controversial referendum called Act of Free Choice, but most of the West Papuans we called Act of No Choice. because at the time our populations were 800,000 people at the times. And now they just selected 1,026 individuals to vote, and 600 of them are brought from the other part of Indonesia to vote for the West Papua, and for the indigenous West Papuans, they put it like 400. So that's already fake referendum happening there. And the struggle is still going now, until now. And during that 1969, that started the genocide. But then I want to bring up the attentions of what happened in 1967. No, 1990, before the referendum, there's US and Indonesia already signed the agreements of for the Freeport, the gold mine. The gold mine is already the second largest gold mine in the world, and that is in West Papua. Not a lot of people knows about it as well, and that's owned by US. And then I will go for next one. Okay, so here is very raw data, and my team, we mapping out all of the data that's what happening in Indonesia, which is multi national corporations that are going in Indonesia and backing all the countries backing up the Indonesia governments and have the concessions in West Papua, which is like in one side is the palm oil concessions and size, and all the companies that are going in are there, and also the locations and everything's in there. And also the other side is the mining, the concession size by comparisons and everything's in here. And what happening on these, my people are fighting because of what Indonesia's governments are doing to West Papuan people. For example, if you see down here in the map, there is a red line. They say that's a uh, trans road or trans in West Papua, which is like they call it Jalan Trans in West Papua. And these are if you click to the next slide and give me one sec. That's okay. That's okay. Thank you. So these are all the map that we put it out, and all the map that Trans Papua Highway, all of these giving the access to the concessions, whether it's logging company or whether it is mining company or palm oil plantations, and everything is here. So that's what Indonesian government's doing. And with West Papuans, we are trying to protect our lands, and also just in case to everyone here that all the lands that Indonesian governments are taking are without the consents of indigenous people. It's basically like land theft or land grabbing. That's what backing up by the military. And that's what Indonesian governments are doing. And because of this happening, a lot of West Papuans fighting back with what happening, and they call them as a counter insurgency, that they label West Papuans.
I think it's solved now. You can continue.
Can everyone can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so from here you can see all the company and everything is going inside here, and all the military are present where the companies are present. For example, the currently what happening in Merauke, and what happening in Intan Jaya, and what happening in some part of Renduga. Those are there were some of them are palm oil plantations are being located in there, and they say the PSN and everything. And also we have a lot of, they located the gold mine and now they are going into West Papua and they are using the tactic of labeling indigenous people, their terrorist attack is coming in, or uh, Kakabe, or they just labeled the freedom fighters in West Papua to access and displace the community from the local areas or whatever they want to utilize the land. And now, if you can go ahead to the next slide. So here are, it's just some example of it. Some example of it. This is the gold mine that we have, and also they don't. Indonesian governments also not really care about what the pollutions they are creating to the community, and with this, West Papuans people, uh, there is no proper healthcare, educations, and everything. It's like, and also, if my Indonesian friends here, they also knows that statistically, and in the GDP of Indonesia, that the West Papuan are very poorest people in the countries, like all six provinces, and that's also going on with the divide and conquered. They are just doing a lot of things in West Papua, and of course, our population's been. My people are facing genocide and genocidal that's happening in West Papua, and I'm very sure that Indonesia are really championing the Middle East, what happening in Gaza and everything's like that, but. The government actually doing the same things to the West Papuan people, and we suffered like 60 years and still continue until now. And maybe you can go ahead and next one as well. Okay, next. Okay, here is some of the examples that are going on. Without the consent of indigenous people, hundreds of thousands of tractor heavy machines going to West Papua, and I didn't put the documents in there, but we have heavy flood happening in Merauke areas. That's where the palm oil plantations and sugarcane plantations they're happening right now. And yeah, these are some of the example. And if you can next again, next, I will come back to that. Yeah, so what happening with Indonesia also, I have a lot of slides, so I will just keep going. That's Indonesian governments propagate on the countering terrorism attack in West Papua to gain support in the logistic and military trainings, which is like Garuda, Super Garuda SEAL training. I know that everybody's know about it. It started in 2006 to 2022. Indonesians also sent ship to Rimpak for a joint military exercise or training. And this one happened, they, because they were no encounters, but they were pressured by Russia. So Indonesia didn't officially join the Rimpak in back then, but they sent their ship to for the Rimpak training. But recently, Indonesia joined the Olympic just recently in 2026. And so they are training the Indonesian military, and also there's also Australia and New Zealand also doing joint training with Indonesia as well, but I didn't put in there as well. So can you go ahead and next one? Here's some of the example that how Indonesia sending their ship to the Olympic training, and also, as I said before, because of the Russia pressure to Indonesia, Indonesia wouldn't officially join the Olympic, but now they join with the Rimpak. And what interesting thing happened is, I think I will come back to that one as well, but can you go ahead as well, continue? And here is some of the military trainings that happening in with the RIMPAC and with the US and some other country as well. And they were being some of these general are war criminal in East Timor, and they were being awarded and to the from the US. And another one here, this one is in West Papua actually. From the I took it out from the Antara, and there is a lot of what happening in here is they are training all the military, and of course the Indonesia, some part of Indonesia, maybe it's a lot of there is not a heavy military presence in Indonesia, but in West Papua, there is heaviest military presence in West Papua in order to counter the terrorism attack. While in West Papua, there is no terrorist group. We call them there is only the liberations, the guerrilla fighters that are fighting for our land. And if you can next one as well. And here is some example of what Indonesians is doing. Next one. This is during the Super Garuda SEAL training. This one is like just newly another form of training that happening with Indonesian governments as well. And this one is uh, released by Embassy of Consultant in Indonesia, and they are doing the Pacific Command. And Pacific Command is what they are doing is just to Pacific Peace Command exercise, which is try to do try to kind of a global peacekeeping kind of things. But in order to do that, they are doing this. These are training they are getting, and they are practicing in West Papua. And I will, if you can go ahead and the next one as well, you will see that. And here are some of the, and also in US also not only supporting Indonesia with the training, but they are also purchasing all the weaponaries from US manufacturers. And this one is just example from the Barrett. And all of this, they are selling this weapon to Indonesia as well. And this one down here is a Syke Sigurd and Remington and so Cold. They are all supporting Indonesia all the with the all these weapons. And you can go ahead and next one. So here is some of the helicopters and heavy missing, including the Boeing. Boeing also supporting the Indonesia aircrafts or helicopters and operating in West Papua as well. And there is another belt up there as well and supporting Indonesia as well on this. And can you go ahead and next one as well? And here is some of this one is from Lake Martin, and this is are some of the fighter jet and also the carriers and everything's in there, and they're utilizing all these weapons to bombing the I indigenous people in West Papua. So if you can go ahead and next one as well, I have some example in there what they are doing to West Papuans. Oh, so this one is recently the Secretary of War um, in the US news or outlet. There is no whatsoever. I check it, but they didn't recognize it, or they didn't not recognize, but they didn't mention it on the news outlet. But in Indonesia, the governments they testified that Secretary of War pardoned the East Timor East Timor war criminal, and some of them are and all its general entering in the U.S. and but because of the Secretary of War tried to invite Indonesia general to U.S. and they have agreements and they pardon all the criminals that happened 27 years ago in East Timor, and they give them complete access to back and forth travel in the US for freely. And that's also happened that I thought I said a little bit about I will come back on that one, which is Russia also going to Russia, and this is the intent is going up. It's like it's creating the intentions that Russia is going to East Timor, and they are doing partnership because of U.S. pardon suddenly, like after 27 years, to give the access to the war criminals on here. And maybe next one.
Ini jumlah tentara Indonesia di Papua mencapai
So
56.000 personel, atau ada 1 tentara untuk setiap 100 orang Papua. Bandingkan dengan rata-rata nasional, di mana hanya ada 1 tentara untuk 696 penduduk Indonesia.
So this is what he's saying is the total personnel in West Papua present is 68,000 personnel, and 1 military personnel for 100 individual West Papuans, while compared to the average national standard is 1 military personnel for 696 people. And that's not including the police, the heavy police presence in West Papua. And can you go ahead and next one as well? So here is some of them, what happening in West Papua. They are not utilizing, but they are saying that sending a lot of troop in West Papua to help the indigenous people, and also utilizing the civilian aircrafts in West Papua. So this is the letters from the interim presidents. Indonesians are using the civilian aircrafts or weapons and utilizing all of these to hospital, for example, and also teachers, and also I know that a lot of folks that will contradict on this one, but what happening is they are on target, and all the West Papuan people, we don't really trust that the military are coming in to serve the people. And can you imagine that all the small kids are present in the school and the heavy military with the weapon and everything that try to come and teach? That's the traumatizing that it's actually terrorizing that psychological warfare is already happening to the community and also the kid. And can you go ahead and the next one? And this one is encountering with the West Papua Indonesians news outlet. They are not very much because I think it's very understandable as well, because Indonesian censorship in the Indonesian news, and what they are saying is we don't I mean Indonesian soldiers sending to the West Papua and utilizing that civilian aircrafts, but in the fact that these are what Indonesian military is doing, using the civilian aircrafts and to sending to the wherever their project is. For example, in Tanjaya, Nduga, Maibrad, and everywhere, every part of the West Papua, they're just utilizing the military aircrafts, and also these are putting for example, some outsider pilot, and foreigner pilot, they are putting them into this kind of things. And Indonesia also utilizing the tactic of our human seal, and they are trying to pretend to be hero on this subject, while they are and also everything's on here, they are denying. They don't use the civilian aircrafts, while our guerrilla fighters, we have a data, we have all of these informations, and they are after they already give them warning to not to come to the places or war zone, or and also to give the pilots and all the aircraft company in West Papua not to load the militaries or ammunitions or anything like that. but they are utilizing anyways on the civilian aircrafts, and we have a couple of very contradict stories that happening in West Papua, but it's just giving the West Papuans to be look like bad guy, but while Indonesian playing like good guy. So that's what happening on here, and yeah, maybe next one. This one is the we already I think that West Papuan the fighting in the guerrilla, they already give them warning, but this is recently like 24th of, which is yesterday, and they're still utilizing it. They are still using the militaries, no militaries, but militaries and personnel using that civilian aircrafts in West Papua. And go ahead, next one, I think. So this is after they gain training, and this is what happening to West Papua. And they are shooting the civilians and shooting the people in West Papua. That's open fire, like from the helicopter. Maybe just make them do the yeah. Thank you. And so those are the helicopters, the U.S. Supported helicopters that, and also other aircrafts. Those are they are using it. They're bombing everywhere in West Papua, but not not a lot of medias that can able to cover what really Indonesian governments is doing in West Papua. And also these are what West Papuans are doing against try to protect. This is Intan Jaya. And Intan Jaya is the heaviest military presence because of the gold mine over there. And they said Indonesian soldiers coming in, and they said like there is freedom fighters, or they say the terrorist attacks over there, and they just creating a lot of propaganda, a lot of new fake informations and fake conflict managements also they are utilizing on the on here as well. So maybe next one. I'm sorry, I take a lot of times. And I put some of the data here. It's these are the extrajudicial killing and disappearance, and these are not even from 1960s. We just took from 2019, 20, 21, 22, 23, and then so forth. And all of those are here. And next one. Yeah, here's a quarterly report from the human rights monitors and also we have a quarter one for 2026 already here as well. If anybody want to visit, and I think I put the link also in the reference as well. And here's a internal displacement that's happening in West Papua. We have more now. Now the total is 76,919, but we have more right now is to exceed like 100,000 internal displacement. Maybe next one. Yeah, I think for the actions to call here, raise awareness whatever you are, and if you have a West Papuans in that places, like please center their voices, and so whatever you are, and also advocate for human rights and monitoring what's happening, and support that nonviolent civic engagement, which is like if you have any connections or any no opportunity about it. If the elected official that we can educate them on what happening and also gain support and stuff like that, that will be amazing. And stand against the disinformations. And also we are also, if that is possible, take independent grassroots and NGOs investigating West Papua. And the next one. Yeah, I think that's it. And then the last will be the references and all the link and everything is right there. I think thank you so much. And yeah, wah.
Thank you so much, Marius. It's just really so inhumane to see what they are doing. I think the strafing that you showed with the helicopter shooting down at people indiscriminately just shows the level of yet dehumanization that um, the US and Indonesian military are enforcing or propagating. And so I'm really glad that you were able to share the situation in West Papua and call for the people to really uplift the struggle. I think one of the phrases that really um, I took note of where you were talking really, we don't have terrorists, we have freedom fighters, right? So really, I think your presentation is really highlighting why do people resist? Uh, most of the times is not a choice, right? It's the necessity of fighting for their land, their rights. So, yeah, thank you so much for being here, sharing with us. And if folks have any questions, please enter in the chat. We'll have the Q&A and we'll love to hear more from Marius, Noel. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing with us. Now we'll go into our last speaker before our Q&A portion. We're going to talk to Christina with Karapatan in the Philippines. Christina is the Secretary General of Karapatan, or Alliance for the Advancement of the People's Rights in the Philippines. Karapatan is a national alliance of human rights organizations, desks, and individual advocates working for the promotion and protection of human rights in the Philippines. Thank you so much for being here, Christina. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Victor. So, my presentation is actually inspired by a recent experience that we had last Wednesday. Many protesters from Karapatan and organizations here in the Philippines conducted a rally while the ASEAN meeting was slated to start with the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio headlining the said meeting here in Manila, and our rally was violently dispersed, and journalists were similarly harassed and physically assaulted. So I'm using one of the ways by which journalists tell their stories or give out their reportage, uh, the 5Ws and 1H, to which my mind also is used by human rights monitors and documenters like us. So in the Philippines, we document and monitor violations of human rights and international humanitarian law, and we work with social movements, progressive movements of workers, peasants, women, and youth here in the country. So when we speak of the 5Ws and 1H of the counterinsurgency campaigns and wars of suppression, the timeline, our timeline, is replete with this kind of the history of the wars of suppression and the counterinsurgency programs by the US and our own government. So when we speak of the when, our history is replete with recollections of our colonial past with Spain, the US, and Japan. No? But our status as a country has remained that of a neo-colony, a vassal state, many would call, no, of the US since 1946. So this timeline of colonization and neo-colonization not only reveals a timeline of subjugation of economic, political, and cultural affairs and way of life, it is likewise a timeline of brutal violence by colonizers and imperialist masters. Can go to the next slide. So, from massacres and killings of leaders and members of reform and revolutionary movements during the Spanish colonial period to the mass murders and rapes during the Japanese occupation to the massacres and the brutal crimes of the US during the colonial and neo-colonial regimes, state violence had been a tool and a system, as I would say, the method to madness used for conquest and dominance. Next slide, please. Contemporary history is not so different from our colonial past. So as the US gave nominal independence to the Philippines, it's little brown Americans among us, as they are referred by the US, run one administration or one government after another, ensuring that the Philippines does not only do the US bidding in the country, but in the Asia Pacific region as well. Thus, for the US to maintain its little brown Americans, it plays a significant role in Philippine elections and political governance, that whoever is backed by the US as its horse comes out as the main victors in the national traditional political exercises such as elections, destabilization schemes, or coups, usually instigated by the Philippine Armed Forces. Next slide, please. And as China challenges the US regional and global hegemony, the US and Philippine governments scramble to position the Philippines as a launchpad of US aggression in the region and as part of the global supply chain for its dirty wars. So, in a sense, our now is also our past. Next slide, please. So the US theater of war in Asia, or the so-called Indo-Pacific region, considers the Philippines as geographically and politically positioned to not only counter threats to the US in the region, but likewise a major part of the US trade route. So, as many in the room would know, the US Indo-Pacific Command is headquartered in Hawaii, and it directs all operations in the Southeast Asian region, including the Philippines. Next slide, please. So within the Philippines, while the military bases treaty with the US has been nullified in 1991, the US troops have seemingly permanent presence. They call it rotating presence, no? But it's really a euphemism for permanent presence in the whole country, while military exercises with so-called allies such as the US, Japan, Canada, etc., have been occurring monthly or even twice a month throughout the year in the last 2 to 3 years. The so-called PAC Silica initiative has been launched with the Philippines positioned as the major economic initiative for the future of AI technology, serving as a hub for resource extraction of critical minerals used in chips and production of war material. Next slide, please. So such position of the Philippines is shored up with increased US military aid for the government. You will be able to see that in the next slide. Next slide, please. The country is the largest recipient of US aid in the Southeast Asian region since decades ago. And that is how we would see how the US looks at the Philippines in terms of its cost-benefit analysis when it comes to its political, geopolitical, and military interests. But at the local and community levels, what it means for us is increased environmental destruction, the massive dislocation of farmers and indigenous peoples, the exploitation of workers for slave wages. These are the detrimental norms that the US presence, rotating presence to the recent PAC Silica initiative would mean and has meant in the many years that it conducts itself here in the country. So when we look at the what and how, so we're finished with the when. It's a very long when. The what and how of this counterinsurgency and wars of suppression campaigns. Next slide, please. When it uses our country as if it's not enough, no? The use of the Philippines and the Filipino people as cannon fodder is not enough. The US drives state violence in the form of doctrinal hegemony, masqueraded as technical assistance, military funding, and direct attacks against the people. Next slide, please. So counter-insurgency blueprints from one administration to another bear the unmistakable US military brand, framework, and concepts. So from war on terror, they called it the war on terror, the whole of society. Next was the whole of government, and then the next was whole of nation. Red tagging, which is merely a throwback to McCarthyism. They also use now the terms focused military operations adapted from the use of the US Army manuals and numerous other concepts. The Philippine counterinsurgency documents are literally cut and pasted from any counterinsurgency, national security, or counter-terror strategy document for the US. Cut and paste, literally. So several sections of our own the counterinsurgency program by any regime in the Philippines would, they don't have to even use ChatGPT to put the doctrines in the US coin guide to the coin guide that the Philippine government has here. Our military generals are schooled in the US Military Academy in West Point, New York, the US Naval Academy in Annapolis in Maryland, US Army Command and General Staff College in Fort Leavenworth in Kansas, and in the Naval War College in Newport, Rhode Island. So military aid has enabled, the first is doctrinal hegemony. The second is about the aid that has enabled the acquisition of numerous Black Hawks, Tomahawks, drones, and other war material that have resulted in violation of human rights and international humanitarian law. So aside from US soldiers and mercenaries providing training and instructional support for helicopter pilots, machine gun and missile operators, and drone operators, these war equipment and bullets are the very same ones used in bombing and conducting ground operations, military ground operations in communities by the armed forces of the Philippines. So it is somewhat predictable, no? That there are many documented cases of extrajudicial killings, torture, and forced disappearances, because these are straight out of the playbook of the US itself. And with the funding that comes in and war material that comes in, these are used to engender those types of violations. The US, next slide, also plays as a major player at the UN Security Council and the G7 a direct role in the violations of rights and in harming the various freedoms that we have fought for in the country through its direct roles in the justice system in the country. The US Department of Justice and Australia are the main trainers of our prosecutors and judges in terms of implementation of counterterrorism strategies. Actually, they would, periodically have trainings here in the US or in Australia. And it is the US Department of Justice that literally wrote provisions of the Philippine anti-terrorism law and the terrorism financing prevention and suppression laws. They would use also that as part of the G7, the US would use the Financial Action Task Force, which is most often invoked its recommendations in the implementation of laws that would hamper freedom of movement, freedom of expression and association, and would initiate freeze orders on bank accounts of humanitarian organization, church institutions, and various people's organizations. So through these forms, numerous administrative circulars, memoranda, bank system circulars, note verbal, and prospective legislations are used to tag progressives and revolutionaries as terrorists and criminalize their work. So the anti-terror law, for example, here in the Philippines has already, since its enactment in 2020, has already listed or netted more than 250 victims of judicial harassment, arbitrary designation, and more than 20 NGOs. Most of them are delivering life-saving services, including those engaged in disaster mitigation and rehabilitation efforts. Their bank accounts are frozen, and their staff and personnel are besieged with numerous charges. One executive director of an NGO that provides relief support for typhoon victims and survivors has more than 50 counts of charges against her, terrorism, financing terrorism charges. So it effectively deters the work, of many of these NGOs, as if our government is the best, right, in addressing the various needs during human-induced or climate-induced disasters in the Philippines. So, next slide. The who and the whys are quite, obvious. So the question on the players and reasons behind these are clearer. The US maintains its dominance and control in the Philippines and the region, while the little brown Americans like Marcos here get their payday through corrupt practices in government that maintains the status quo in a corrupt traditional and patronage system of political governance. The little brown Americans get to land grab and establish corporations that profit off from the back-breaking toil of peasants and workers. The little brown Americans get to point to the communists, to the political opposition, to the progressives, to the social movements, and the ordinary Filipino as the main reasons for the country's malice and problems. And so they deserve to be killed, suppressed, and terrorized. That's how they think. That is their why, no? And so the question of who and why is not just a question, as Victor has said a while ago, it's not just a question of the antagonists in this theater of war. It has also been a question on who are the protagonists. Next slide. Social and revolutionary movements in the Philippines have played a tremendous role in not only pushing back or resisting this oppressive system. They have played a central role in determining the ways forward. So for us, it is imperative that we build not only a strong national movement that combats feudalism and bureaucrat capitalism in the Philippines. The struggle against imperialism and fascism is an integral part of that struggle. And it is important for us that we link arms with the peoples of Asia and the Asia-Pacific region and the world through wave upon waves of protests against wars of suppression and counterinsurgency program. Perhaps as a last note, this November, in the ASEAN meeting, Trump will be joining that ASEAN meeting here in the Philippines, and we're gearing up for protests, not only because he will be here, and he will be doing, they will both be doing their stuff, no? Trump and Marcos, but also because we think that they will seal the deal on the PAC Silica initiative this November, during the during maybe in the sidelines of the ASEAN meeting. So we are encouraging many those who are here, and many others, to do simultaneous protests or join us in protests here in the Philippines in the lead up to the November summit. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christina. I think the last part that you highlighted on the resistance, on really the resistance being the impediment of also the US being able to use the whole country and the people as cannon fodder in its wars against its enemy. So really highlighting the importance of, fighting against counterinsurgency and bringing the people together to fight it. Thank you so much for your contribution. Before we go to question and answer, we will play a cultural offered by Marius, which we skip on the presentation, but we'll play right now. And then following that, we'll go to the question and answer. So maybe if folks have any questions, please say in the chat. We'll also open up the floor for people to raise their hands. And maybe Carly can help us with the cultural. Oh, thank you.
Once the sunshine, now turn into night. Yeah, well, hope has gone, still waiting for a brighter day. Somewhere beyond the mountains and valleys, you can hear the children are crying, with tears falling like rain. Still waiting for the rising sun. I'm staring at the horizon, right to be free. Every day in fear of being tortured. Why is this have to happen? Where is the love to love? Still waiting for the rising sun. I'm staring at the horizon. Let's join hands with Melanesia and pray. Free West Papua America. We're joined together now in unification with Melanesia. Free West Papua America. We stand together now on Melanesia. Tonight. Free West Papua America. We're joined together now in unification with Melanesia. Free West Papua America. We stand together now in Melanesia. Tonight. Free West Papua America. Joined together now in unification with Melanesia. Free West Papua America. We stand together now in Melanesia. Tonight.
Thank you so much. It was so beautiful to see so many different generations coming together in the video to, yeah, rally around the call for Ubas Papua. I don't know if you have any words on the cultural areas that you want to share.
I think the song itself is self-explanatory, so that's totally fine. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think now we'll move into question and answer. I think we have all the speakers spotlighted. It was a great webinar so far. So many great and different angles that were covered from the overall situationer in the Asia Pacific region and the specific examples from West Papua and the Philippines. So the floor is open right now for any questions that folks have. You can either raise your hand and then unmute, and I can call on you, or send the question in the chat as well. Yeah, I see Rachel has their hand up. Please.
Hi, thank you. Thank you all. Very important information to hear. And I had asked a question to someone, not to everyone, but I'll say it generally. And it was to the first gentleman for West Papua, because you kept mentioning Indonesia doing this. And I thought back, I'm the person in the chat who talked about the Cold War and that we've put on the Cold War Truth Commission ongoing, putting the U.S. Cold War on trial. But I guess it would be for both of you, but especially the first speaker, you know, how we're trying to envision a world if the U.S. hadn't, post-World War II, really took us all on the wrong turn, in the wrong turn. How could you see the situation being different, Indonesia being a different neighbor completely, had the U.S. coup in 1965 not happen, and you know all that happened after that? What was killed when the U.S. coup happened, and how did that change Indonesia into such a enemy of the people in the region?
Yeah, Maris.
I'm sorry, would you simplify the questions?
As you were talking about Indonesia, being so horrific to West Papua, I think of what it could have been if the 1965 U.S.-backed coup had not happened. Here in the United States, you're here too, so we're under this Cold War thing that never was cold and never ended. But how could what was killed in Indonesia with the U.S. coup, and how could they be different in your part of the world had the U.S. Cold War tentacles not happened?
Thank you. I think let me just pull out a little bit of statistic of the indigenous population in West Papua. The indigenous populations in comparisons in 1960, before 1964, everything's happened. In 1960s is 8,000, 8 million people, while Papua New Guinea, it's 2 million at a time. And then since Indonesia invade West Papua, and that's why we call it genocide that happened in West Papua and nobody knows. And I would say is that it could happen, it could be better if my people at the times like you just US hand off the West Papua instead of like signing all the contracts and begging up Indonesia to hand over from the Dutch territory, because during the Dutch, even the same colony with the Indonesian governments, I mean the Indonesian former colonizer, which is the Dutch, and in Dutch administrations, one single West Papua never dead in during those days. And then when Indonesia invade West Papua, that's the genocide happened until now. And now the indigenous populations, it's um, decreased to 2.5 millions, while in 1960s it was 8 millions. And this data is not my own, but it's also in the cultural survival's website. There is indigenous organizations, they put it over there. And also for us, the mortality rate is very much uh, very high, and born rate is not really a lot. And because that's controlled genocide that happening in West Papua, because we have, as I said before, we have rich natural resources that we have. Also, this you can see that we have the largest tropical rainforest in Asia Pacific, and nobody knows. Not a lot of people are aware of it. And so with that, like we have natural resources and gold mine and some other we just have a lot. So that's why the Indonesian governments, they try to eliminate the people and take over the land. So now Indonesians a lot of sending a lot of migrants to the West Papua, and with the populations of Indonesian migration in West Papua now already exceed, which is like we are becoming minority in our lands, and it's already 2 point more than 2.5 million people in West Papua, and including, that's not including the military years, like military and police are even a lot. yeah, I think that answer your questions. Like if US not at the times in 1960s like just not support Indonesia, I think we could be better and could be good neighbors to Indonesian governments and also some other part of the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marius. Tech team has been collecting some other questions as well. I think these are for everyone, but we have it in the chat. What are some strategies of land defenders to resist the attacks that people have learned from in their advocacy work / struggles? And then how do they advocate for justice for the victims of the counterinsurgency wars? What does justice look like for the people in some of the cases they are taking up?
Okay, maybe I will just go quick. Okay, we in West Papua, there is a lot of protests and everything's happening, but our voices are suppressed. Like we are being killed. Like when we are protest, we are being killed in West Papua, and even it's life or death situations, and we have whenever, like for example, myself is speaking out here, my people, like my own family are being targeted by Indonesian governments. And so that's the tactics that they are using. I know that the Philippines also a little bit seems that they're using those tactics as well. So the West Papua is a song, these songs that I choose, it's intentionally because we don't like the when the night and when they became a morning, like West Papuans like always under attack. It's like could be in the hospital, for example. Even if you go to hospital, we don't really trust the hospital. And I think in my presentations, like everybody may be already aware that Indonesian governments now using the military is the multifunctions. Even they are going to school, going to even the prayers, like in the church, they are guarding the some of the in the building and watching with all the uniform and then weapons and everything. And West Papuans are worship inside the church, and they are guarding outside. There is no criminal activities, like for example, um, when the West Papuans in the refugees, for example, not refugees, but we call it refugees, but they say the internal displacement. So when the internal displacement happened, my people, they never ever go to the Indonesian government or in the city find refuge in there, but they go to the jungle. And the word jungle is that West Papuans fighting for their liberations. They are there. They are the protectors. So this is like some misconceptions that Indonesian governments are propagating that those informations. And also this is the media as well. So I mean like in the public as well. So I won't really mention a lot on our tactics and our what are we fighting, and because I don't want my counters get ideas what we are doing and everything's like that. But our people in West Papua, they are very much, even though the life or death situations, and even my relatives, I have a lot of family members, a lot of even it's just too much going on. Like even they protest, they against the Indonesian governments, and it's both sides. Like whether it's West Papuans that want to get independence, or even the West Papuans the supporting Indonesians programs in West Papua, they're been targeted, they're been killed. And I think I'm sorry, but that's my answer. Yeah. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you for sharing again. Yeah, Christina, you want to go?
Yeah. Well, there are several strategies, no? And I think what should be first considered is that there is an existing national liberation movement here in the Philippines, which utilizes both the armed and unarmed forms of resistance, no? And while we as legal activists are not party to the armed form, there is deep respect, and acknowledgement of the aims of the national liberation movement that's being, that's resisting imperialism and other forms of ills in our society. For those in the legal democratic movement, there is there have been various not really successful in the sense of, you get to have like in tennis or in basketball, there's a scoreboard. But in terms of cumulatively earning lessons, I think, and yes, some wins in terms of advocacy and mass campaigns against counterinsurgency campaigns. So what the most basic thing that we've learned is that without a very strong and broad-based mass movement, we can't do anything. So it's imperative to continue organizing work in a very widespread way, and in a way that deepens the understanding and commitment of various people's organizations and organized political forces to look at imperialism not as just an external thing, but deeply connected with what we are enduring, in the country. Building the mass movement is very easy to say, but it's really hard work, painstaking work built through years and years of organizing, education work, coalition building work, and many other strategies. What comes after are successes, when we have built these movements, not only in terms of court battles won, or bringing Duterte, for example, to the International Criminal Court, or having favorable outcomes in the United Nations. It comes at the end of the day, as we say, it comes with the increased number of people that we reach. It comes with the increase in members of mass organizations. It comes in the multiplicity and creative forms of organizing and mass actions that we have. It comes with the number of allies that we have, even in what many would call reactionary institutions like the churches here in the Philippines. The institutional church remains very conservative, but there are progressives who work within these institutions. There's also work in the parliamentary arena, inside parliament. But of course, it's not there are only a few progressive parliamentarians that we have, and they can only do so much in a snake pit of in the parliament. But the most important thing is that everyone builds in the view that all these should contribute to building the broadest support against imperialism, feudalism, and bureaucrat capitalism. So yes, some may see it as quite different in the Philippines. We would say, we would tell imperialists as themselves inside the UN, but we do that also. So in any way that we can, especially in the parliament of the streets, we utilize these various strategies that we have.
Noah, please.
Yes, I'd like to double down on the points mentioned by Christina as well as Marius. the importance of an organized section of the people, because the fight is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And you need organizations as well as people working together. When Duterte was brought to the ICC, President Duterte, the former president of the Philippines, it wasn't just about lawyers doing really great lawyer work, no? It was the victims, the families of the victims organizing themselves, talking to everyone, no, that they can seek support from. That's one. Second, I think fighting counterinsurgency, as my main point would be, is fighting plunder. So when workers are able to assert a higher wage, when they are able to form their own unions, it's one win. It's a victory against counterinsurgency, against plunder. When the farmers are able to kick out a military detachment, when they're able to get more produce because they were able to assert their right to till the land, that is a victory. And that is one way of us fighting plunder. When the imperialist takes away our resources and we prevent them from them doing this exploitation, plunder of our resources, it's a victory. But it requires, as mentioned already by our previous speakers, painstaking work, organizing, and mobilizing the broadest possible number of people fighting together. I think that's very important.
I see that there is a few more questions in the chat and raising hands, but I think we are getting to the end of the webinar. So I think Carly put the email of Resist in the chat. If you can put it again, would be great to still hear those questions, and I think we can pursue the speakers and give you an answer if you send an email to us. If you want your question answered, we'll have the email. Yes, it's on the chat. So yeah, thank you so much. I think we'll start closing out the webinar. I think this last note that all the speakers touched on the resistance, seeing the popular resistance, right? The many and many, many people that are fighting for their rights, economic rights, the right for land, the right against free speech, right? To assemble, to protest, to demand their rights. It's all a fight against counterinsurgency. And I think in the international stage, right, a fight against imperialism. So really taking out and drawing the connections between the enemies in the whole of the Asian, the Pacific. Noel mentioned Latin America, but the whole world, how it is being afflicted by this single and similar enemy that is imperialism, and particularly US imperialism as the strongest imperialist. So really seeing how these national fights together are also fighting a similar enemy that is imperialism. And we can build this front against war, against plunder, against counterinsurgency, and seeing the importance of this educational event for that reason too. So thank you so much for helping us draw those connections and inspiring us so much. Again, thank you. I think it's really clear how these war preparations that we are talking in the campaign are so intertwined with the counterinsurgency operations. We heard from Marius talking about RIMPAC, definitely how the Balikatan exercises in the Philippines. Also, part of it is this jungle trainings that are in essence helping the Philippines military use and deploy counterinsurgency operations, and of course, how these counterinsurgency operations, in the end of the day, pave the way for, or try to pave the way for, more economic exploitation of the people who are, in fact, resisting. I think it's really important that we, from here on, and it's something that I am really taking from this webinar also, the importance of centering these struggles for self-determination in the fight for a just peace, in the fight against militarism, how these struggles for sovereignty, for land, for economic rights are and need to be central to the fight against militarism. And it's what we are building with, together with the Resist US-led war movement, right? So yeah, as we continue to build the People's Caravan, let's not forget that and also uplift these struggles together. I think we have a few specific calls to action there in the end. Yeah, like we said, RIMPAC still happening, and we have a letter drawing support against RIMPAC, showing that the people do not want the marine life in occupied Hawaii, their land and the people being invaded by the US military and exploited, and using Hawaii as this launch pad for Indo-PACOM in its quest to confront China. So really urging people to sign on if you haven't signed on this letter yet, and rimpac.org, as we continue to confront the different targets with the people in Hawaii that have been fighting RIMPAC for decades. We can go to the next slide. Oh, yes. Okay, as we know, the US is also on many other places in the world waging relentless war against the people that are resisting and asserting their sovereignty, like in Iran. The so-called Memorandum of Understanding the US has violated since day one, and Iran has not backed down. And the US has, of course, intensified against its strikes against the Iranian people and the Islamic Republic of Iran. So really calling on the people to continue to mobilize. We, with other groups, are calling for this day of action on the July 28th. So if you plan to have an action in solidarity with Iran, you can enter that link that is on the screen right now so that you can register your action. There's resources as well that you can find in the website. And then if you are close to the Pacific Northwest in the United States, there will be this documentary screening. Do you have any, you want to talk a little bit about it, Marius?
Okay, this documentary is it's about the PSNs that are going on in West Papua, and these my Indonesian friends, they know that this documentary is expose what the governments of Indonesia is doing in West Papua, and this is going to very much uh, yeah, exposing whatever they're doing. So they are opposing these films, and they are trying to shut down so many times, and also try to lawsuit the producer of the films, and also terrorizing the film producer. And you see the woman, Mama Yasminta, is the mothers over there. She kidnapped her. The Indonesian soldiers kidnapped her in her own spaces, like from Merauke. That's where she came from, and they brought her in Jakarta and to report. And she was missing for 3 days, and she turned 180 degrees to support the whatever Indonesian government's doing in West Papua. So that's how powerful of this film is. And they targeted after there's so many film screening and thousands of across the Indonesia and outside of Indonesia. film screening and they try to shoot it down. So yeah, if you are close by and then just if you can make it, that will be nice. But if you don't, that's totally okay as well. And right after we will have the panel discussions as well.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Marius. Maybe in the follow-up email, we can also make the documentary available to people so they can watch on their own. Thank you so much. We have a next slide. Oh, yeah. That's great. Join the Resist US-led war movement. I think I talked a little bit about what we are doing with Resist, but I think this webinar is a great show of what we can build together, right? With the campaign in the Asian, the Pacific that Noel is also representing, with different members coming together to share their experience and really expose how this fight is one of international dimensions and that every blow to the US war machine is a contribution to each other's movements. So we invite everyone to join, individual or organization, if you unite with the point of resisting US-led war and building a just peace. You're welcome to join, and we hope to continue building the movement together. You can just sign the manifesto in the Resist website, which is on the chat and also on the screen. All right, guys. Thank you so much again to all the speakers, Noel, Christina, Marius. Like everyone saying on the chat, it was just a very enriching experience in many ways. And like we just were talking about, there's a lot of fight to continue to forge ahead. So thank you so much. I think we'll end with a song from the Filipino movement, Song of Hope, that Carly can put in for us, and with our spirits high on the note of resistance and international solidarity. Thank you so much, everyone.
Kahit kay haba ng lalakbayin, daang tagaraw man ang humagupit. Kahit ilang libong tagulan ang sumapit, hindi tayo titigil. Dahil mithi natin palayain, bawat isa sa pagalitin. Sa gitna man ng gutom, kahirapan, pasakit, hindi tayo susuko. Kahit na may bagyo, kahit na may unos, kahit may libong kaaway, kahit na magapi ang isang matira sa ating dakilang hanay, tayong manggagawa at magsasaka. Sambayanan ay muling babangon, ipagtatagumpay ang bawat labanan sa buong daigdig. Kahit halangan ng libong armas, ang ating mukbo ay hindi atras. Lakas ng masa ang ating sandigan, saan mang larang at digmaan. Kahit na may bagyo, kahit na may unos, kahit may libo-libong kaaway, kahit na magapi ang isang matirang sa ating dakilang hanay, tayong manggagawa at magsasaka. Sambayanan ay muling babangon, ipagtatagumpay ang bawat labanan sa buong daigdig. Kahit na may bagyo, kahit na may unos, kahit may libo-libong kaaway, kahit na magapi ang isang matira sa ating dakilang hanay, tayong manggagawa at magsasaka. Sambayanan ay muling babangon, ipagtatagumpay ang bawat labanan sa buong daigdig. Ipagtatagumpay ang bawat labanan sa